Timothy Eugene Johnson, Massachusetts own Soma79. Hi man, how are you doing today?
Not bad. How's it going? Wow, pulling out the middle name. Wow, I don't get that very often.
My first question is just like, what type of day are you having?
I'm having a pretty good day. It's snowing pretty. Actually, we had a bit of an ice storm here, so I had to cancel a lot of my plans for the day. I actually had a lot of plans I was supposed to do today, but this is the only one that I'm actually keeping because everything else got canceled because of the ice storm. So I'm actually pretty happy about that. How about yourself?
I'm having a solid day, a standard day, very solid. So,
Sweet.
throughout your childhood, in your surroundings, you were one of the only kids listening to hip hop. How did you discover it, and what made you love it so much?
Oh man, I would say the back of the bus on the way to school was the first place I probably heard hip hop, and it would have been like Eazy-E from NWA and like DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. There was always this way that it was either we only ever heard the cleanest stuff and the most like obscene, like vile, like well, vile is probably too, but the most like obscene stuff for like a kid to be listening to is like Two Life Crew and Eazy-E and like Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince and like the Beastie Boys. So that to me was in the back of the bus hearing that stuff, and then I just needed to hear more and more. So I found college radio, and what really made a big difference for me is I was watching MTV and I saw a video for No Nose Job by Digital Underground, and that totally blew my mind. And it was like, oh, this is something I can do, you know?
And would you say not having many friends who also like rap impacted you in some way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if it's like this now, but I was like teased a lot over my music taste. And I think maybe because we didn't know as much about people back in the day. There wasn't social media, so we only had a few things to tease each other on, and that was it. I don't know. But I was the only kid to listen to rap music, and I was like teased for it. People would accuse me of wanting to be black, which is a very strange thing for like a seventh grader to accuse another seventh grader. It's like I don't even know how to respond to that. Like it's such a strange odd like twist of, you know. It's like if you're watching the Jetsons, does that mean you want to be a cartoon character? I don't know. But so yeah, and I got a lot of crap over that, like pretty much all through high school. I remember this girlfriend of mine in high school who was a big Dave Matthews fan. I had just bought the Snoop Dogg album, The Dog Father, which mind you, I bought the other day again on vinyl. And she told me in high school when I bought it, she's like, "You're gonna be embarrassed in like 2 years that you bought that." Like literally, not only did I buy it on vinyl the other day, I showed up at my parents' house and they were excited to see Snoop on the football game. So it's you know,
Yeah.
I like to think that I was on the right side of history.
Anthony Church and you this May released a collab album called Zero for a Day. How was it
Yep.
making the project?
It was great. So I met him similar to this on a podcast. Like, I think I had interviewed somebody that knew him, and they suggested we meet up, and I did his podcast. And during that, I just got a sense that he was someone that would probably be very easy to work with, and a very smart kid, and just knew a lot about music. And I liked his style, and I'm like suggested, I think, on that episode that we worked together, and then I'm one of those people who once I kind of decide I want to do something, it's like I wouldn't say a race to get it done, but I'm invested and I like to strike while the enthusiasm is still there. So I think he sent me a bunch of beats and I wrote a lot fast. I think we did the first 80% of the album in probably a month or two. And then, of course, we spent a long time waiting for features to come in from different rappers and stuff like that. But it went really smoothly. He's very knowledgeable. And I was always a big fan of like chill out music. And that's kind of the sort of beats he makes. So it's nice to be able to work with somebody who has this one sound, then all the other producers I work with that have different sounds. And we actually got a new album coming out called Emotional Goblins. It's still a while away from coming out, but he sent me a few beats about a month ago, and I think I wrote 19 songs in about a week and a half, and now we're just whittling them down to what's the best, re-recording and stuff like that. So.
And I know that there is a title track, but how did you title this album?
Oh, Zero for the Day. So that was a reference to something that I always remember from high school. where a teacher, if you were like acting up in class, a teacher would threaten you with giving you a 0 for the day. And it's a tremendously empty threat, because it begs the question of, well, what number did I get every other day? Like, how is this, like, none of the rest of our grading system is based upon days or numbers like that. So how is that going to factor in, or is it just a tremendously empty threat? And it was, to me, it symbolizes, they say, I've always thought that, school prepares you for the real world, but in all the wrong ways. It's in America, at least. Like, they teach you a lot of stuff that is not very valuable in the real world. But if you're paying attention to the bureaucracy of school, you'll definitely see something that you'll be experiencing a lot for the rest of your life, which is like people giving you empty threats, people like trying to embiggen themselves to enforce power they don't have. And I think, for me, it all goes back to being threatened with a 0 for the day. I think on the track 0 for the day, I remember at the end they say, what happens if I add up all my zeros? Like, what are we gonna, it amounts to nothing.
And I know Anthony and you met in real life very recently. Yeah. How was it meeting him?
It was great. It's funny. I remember when I had been in a relationship for years, and I started getting into like online dating, and I had one friend who was like, are you sure you want to like do that? You want to meet somebody from the internet? And it was like, to them, it was the most terrifying thing. But like over the past like 8 years, I've had all these friendships and even relationships that start off on Instagram or whatever, and lead to being real friendships. Because we worked on the album together for a good year or two before we ever met. I just happened to be, he lives also in the United States, but it's it would be like a 10 or 15 hour drive, and I happened to be out his way for something business related, and I'm like, hey, no time like now. So we met up for an hour or two. We shot some stuff for the most recent video, and that we just released the other day for 0 for the day, and it was great. It's always great because it's like, there's one thing about like internet friendships, that you can invest all this time in them, but then when you actually meet, it's like all that time actually like is like cascaded into a real friendship. It's like it's funny how that happens. It becomes someone you just met who you've been friends with for a few years, and it's usually the friends with for a few years overrides the someone you just met.
Mm-hmm. And you were a part of multiple groups. You were a part of Project Mayhem. You were a part of Mike Monarchy. Even today, you often work with like one producer for an album. What would you say is the reason you often prefer not to work solo?
It's funny. I'm actually right now embarking upon the solo aspect. I'll get to that in a second, but back in the day, it's just, when I was part of Project Mayhem, that was back maybe 20 years ago, and I just wasn't that strong of an MC, and I was glad that they were willing to have me. Like, what happened with that was a group of about 10 MCs from the Quincy, Mass area, and one day my name just got added to the roster on the MySpace page, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'm part of Project Mayhem. I think they had some sort of falling out with someone else, and whoever it was that was manning the MySpace page was particularly a fan of mine and added me, so I'm like, all right. And then, so that was cool, but as you'd expect, a group of 20-somethings, of 10 people, that dissolved rather quickly. And then from the remnants of that grew Mike Monarchy. And I was at a point too where I didn't have the resources or the ability to do it on my own. I was making hip hop music that none of my friends really had any interest in, to be honest. Like, I was always making stuff that was a little more playful, a little weirder, and a little more word, like for the love of the words and the word plays and stuff like that. And it wasn't like, the only way I was going to get anywhere was to be in a group with other people and kind of come up with an aligned style we could do. So through Mike Monarchy, I got to open for groups like Onyx and R.A. the Rugged Man and Ill Bill, a bunch like Copyright, a bunch of legends of underground hip hop from back in the day. And then, what I eventually realized about being in a group is that it's sort of like having a relationship with multiple people. It's hard enough to have a relationship with one person, but you're essentially in a relationship with multiple people, and it's always very difficult. You start taking on these very particular roles, and it just, it's just ended up being no longer worth it. And then I just quit rapping for about 10 years, and when I came back, I decided I wasn't going to join a group, but I was going to kind of work on group projects. because I still needed some help to sort of polish off the final version, like the mix and all that. But this is the year where I'm embarking on my first truly solo album, where I'm doing all the beats and I'm doing all the raps and all that. So, and all the mixing. So I actually started working on that this week. So.
And what would you say was the main thing that drew you back to hip hop after those 10 years?
Well, the reason I quit in the first place is I was sitting in traffic one day in Boston, right outside the Prudential Center, and I heard this song by this rapper Percy P, and it was called it was Two from the Gutter or something. If it was him and Diamond D, the song's out there, but like it's amazing, and it made me realize, oh, I'm never gonna be this good. It just made me think that like it was the moment there where I'm like, I can't, I'm wasting my time. And I quit. And then 10 years later, when COVID hit, I was sort of back in this tiny apartment like that I was living at the time, just looking around going, what am I going to do? I felt like I had to express myself somehow. And I'm an artist in other ways. I do visual art and stuff, but I've been doing that for years, and I was kind of feeling stale on that. And I just started wanting to rap again. And I was like, what I did is I went out and paid for a verse from Esoteric of Czarface. Like Esoteric's one of my favorite rappers of all time. He's like a local dude, and Czarface has gotten pretty big with the Wu-Tang connection and stuff. And I was like, if I pay for this verse, I know I'm committed to coming up with a rap that is good enough to stand next to Esoteric. And that I just built backwards from there. And that song eventually was released with Kool Keith on it as well. So it was really more of just me being not happy that I gave up, and me thinking that maybe if I tried a little harder, I could be what I wanted to be, because it was still like something that felt unfinished for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what would you say changed from, let's say, your debut album, broadcasting from Channel 79, like back in 16 years ago, and this year's You're Scaring the Ducks? What is like the difference? What would you say is like the
there's so much. I mean, that original one has a MySpace URL on it. I often joke about that album, which is available for free, because if I took everything off that album that was a sample that like I probably wasn't supposed to use, it would be just me talking. So I didn't have a whole lot of foresight back in the day about making a CD that I probably couldn't sell because of all the samples on it. I mean, that was pretty dumb. I still got a couple hundred of those in a closet over there. But I would say in general, that album is, I was not a fully formed MC yet. I'm sort of trying to be more show-offy. Like I'm trying to show people how clever I am, but I'm missing the narrative, and I'm losing. Like I remember people back in the day thought I wanted to be like Aesop Rock, and I was like, I like Aesop Rock, but I was never really trying for that. But I can definitely hear that criticism of that style. Like, it wasn't accessible music. Like, I think I thought you had to be really like out there to be artistic, and I didn't realize till years later that there's a certain art to writing a song that both connects with your inner vision and people's expectations of what a song is. And I think I've always, back in the day, I felt like an outsider, so I tried to make outsider music. But now I realize that I want to be part of a community, so I try to write music that a community would appreciate, I guess. And I mean, there's also, too, I'm working with much bigger names now. We have Elza on that album, Doug Benson, who's one of my favorite comedians of all time. I remember seeing him on an episode of Friends when I was a kid and laughing so hard. So to have him on the album was a really big deal for me. And then Young Hum from Digital Underground, who's become a friend, and Rex from another Boston legend. So I didn't have those opportunities to work with artists back then. I had to put the time in and effort to work up to that, and it to me makes a big difference, because more people are going to hear those songs. If they don't hear my solo songs, they're much more likely to hear those songs. And you have to be good enough. I have to make sure that I'm representing in a way that's not going to make me next to Elza sound like a total chump. So for me, that's the challenge. And I'm not running from things anymore. I'm trying to just get better and better.
What keeps you motivated to continue working?
I think about this a lot. I have OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, which for me, what tends to happen is, my version of that is that I kind of end up living the same day over and over again, kind of like Groundhog's Day, where if something works for me, like if I wake up in the morning and I think about Snoopy and it makes me happy, happy, there's a good chance the next day I'm going to wake up in the morning and think about Snoopy and it's going to make me happy. And that's great in terms of things like working, like if you have a goal you want to reach, like working on a song or something like that. It can be bad in terms of things like exercise, where if you do it every day, you might hurt yourself. So for me, it's as a lot of artists I talk to challenge just have a trouble getting started, getting that going. I sort of have problems on both ends where if I haven't been starting for a while, it's tough to get started, but if I have been going, it's tough to stop. And so for me, I'm always trying to find this healthy, balance in between doing it enough to satisfy myself, but not doing it so much that it burns me into the ground. So it's challenging. It's because I've even found in the past year, that I have to get back to things like exercise, because I used to do it because I enjoyed it and because it was healthy. But then when I found out how much I was enjoying my art so much more, it was overriding my joy of that. And I'm like, well, now my life has gone out of balance. So for me, right now, my goal is to actually do less, because I feel like it's almost gotten to an unhealthy level.
And you have a podcast called Personal Problems that you have been teasing for a long time, and ended up having just like one episode out, if I'm not mistaken. What made you not continue it? Because you were really talking about that project like
It's still
a
coming.
lot.
That's so we just without, and I don't know that I ever clearly articulated this. It wasn't going to be like a regular thing. It was going to be the when we get around to doing it sort of thing. And this year was particularly busy for both myself and my co-host Katie Newton. But we just a few weeks ago put out another call for questions, and we got like one or two in. So I got to re-up that to get another one in. That's actually my favorite sort of podcast to do. That is exactly what we just did, which was the getting down and talking with someone. One thing I did kind of underestimate is how much afterwards there would be editing to that, because that first episode was a lot longer than what actually aired, and both her and I had stuff that we wanted to cut out and stuff that we ended up wanting to add in. And for me, this is giving advice on the internet is like, well, you're getting it from a rapper who has some business experience. It's like it ain't no thing if I say something that's like whatever. She's an actual therapist. So like, and I think I was afterwards, I was like, oh, we have to be like pretty careful about kind of like to make sure that the friendly dynamic doesn't dilute the fact that she's an actual therapist, and she's an excellent therapist, and she's done so much to help people. So that is coming back, but it just isn't a top priority because her and I just have other priorities. And I actually announced 3 podcasts for this year. And one of them I haven't done any episodes for. The other one I've recorded for. We're working on recording a 5th, and then we're going to announce how we're going to release all of those. Because that one we're actually trying to have it released on someone else's platform to get bigger reach.
And you are very vocal about the importance of mental health, and like you also go to therapy, if I'm not mistaken. Like, how did you learn to take care of yourself, your mental health?
I think I was always cognizant of the fact that I had mental health problems. Like even when I was younger, I mentioned before, I didn't have a lot of friends that listen to hip hop. I didn't have a lot of friends in general. And, I think a lot of the relationships I had were very surface level, in that I was kind of just trying to act like I thought somebody healthy was acting and not doing a great job of it. So I remember wanting to go to mental health, therapy when I was a teenager, and being, honestly being told no. And it was as soon as I got my own health insurance, when I got my first real job, that I went and started therapy. And I haven't consistently done it this whole time, but it made a big difference for me in terms of, I've been in therapy a lot the past few years. I do weekly therapy, and it's been an enormous benefit in my life. And part of it is wanting to actually change, and wanting to realize that, at least for me, that my big problem was that there's a disconnect between the person on the inside and the person on the outside. And I had to spend a lot of time trying to, meld those two worlds to a point where they were similar. And it didn't feel like I was living inside of 2 bodies, but it's made a big difference in my life,
And you are running a radio show called Soma79. What is the process of running it?
So that was something that came out of my podcast. I had one thing that's interesting about me having a podcast. I did about 80 episodes, my old one, The Articulate Ox, where I interviewed different people. And, a lot of those podcasts there's interviews come and go, and not much comes of it. But then every once in a while, there's one that leads to a lot of attention. And I interviewed this guy, Steve Levy, who was the founder of Moonshine Music, which was a techno label that I was really into like 25 years ago. And that interview got a decent amount of attention from people, and it led to different techno promoters like hitting me up to interview other people that I knew that I heard of in the industry. And then they started hitting me up about being guests on radio shows, and I guess I did well on that. And then they decided they wanted me on the radio show, have my own, and then they wanted me to bring other people. And to be honest, what has gotten me this far in that is that I'm professional, and that when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And that is pretty rare in the music industry. Like, it's like, I know, case in point, like I was working on putting out this collab album where I talked to 30 different MCs about appearing on it, and I gave them a deadline of the end of the year, which is 2 days from now. And this was months and months and months ago. I've got maybe 4, and all of them committed to doing it verbally or committed at the time. It's like people are tremendously unreliable. So like for me, it's like if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. So I end up not only doing the show, but I really break down the formula of how to make it, not only that I can do it, but that every episode I can do faster and faster, so I can be more and more efficient. So what I just do it in Premiere Pro, Adobe Premiere Pro, and I mix it all on vinyl. So it's basically like, instead of piecing all this stuff together, I just drop the needle, and for 35 minutes, I'm just mixing vinyl back and forth, which gives me the practice I want to do that, because it's never really been my strong suit, but I'm getting better at it. Then I talk for a minute or two, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that no one was really there to hear from me. Most people don't know who I am. So I figure I just talk long enough to give them my station identification, have them possibly follow me somewhere, maybe plug my own music, play 1 or 2 of my own songs. But I'm really just there to practice my vinyl and to learn a new skill, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to do it because the Queen popped. And so shout out to her for putting me on to do that. And honestly, if there's anybody else out there that wants that opportunity to do like a 45-minute long radio show and is actually reliable and will do it, hit me up, because I might be able to get you one, because there's tons of people who are not reliable.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before how you worked with legendary Kool Keith, and like I know you opened for him and similar stuff. Like, how was it working with him the first time?
It was interesting. So that came about because I recorded that verse with Esoteric, and then I was like, all right, how do I make this even more special? So I got another big name MC on this, and I started writing all these MCs and nobody wrote me back. I was like, oh crap, maybe this isn't as easy as that. I mean, I got money, like what's going on? And so I hit up Esso. I was like, dude, no one's writing me back. You know anyone? Any thoughts? And he's like, hit up Keith. And he gave me his email address. And now Kool Keith I don't think he'd be offended to hear me say that he's a legendary weirdo. He's one of those people who, especially from a distance, you don't know where the man begins and the persona ends. And so there's that level of like, okay, is this a pretty normal person playing a weirdo, or is this a weirdo who's even weirder? And then to throw in that, I knew a few people who had different run-ins with him over the years, and they're like, no, he's pretty weird. And they said that I had one person tell me he's at least cognizant of the fact that people expect him to be weird, so he plays into it. So I didn't know what to expect. I emailed him, and we went back and forth, and he was tremendously professional. And I was like, wow, this is pretty, like, you never know until you actually work with somebody. Got it back to me quickly. That was all good. So then that song sat on the shelf for a while because I was waiting for the right time to release it. Like, I was practicing getting good at music videos. So I wanted that one to have a really solid video that I am eventually making with puppets and releasing in March of this year. But one of the reasons I released it when I did is because I saw that Kool Keith was coming to town. I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I release this then I have a single with Kool Keith. They'll probably put me on the show. So I hit them up and I was like, hey, I got a single drop with Kool Keith. You mind if can I open? They're like, love to have you. So they brought me in. And so that was my first. So a few days before that, I was loading the song up to Spotify. And I didn't realize this, but when you work with artists, and I guess I probably should have thought this, when you work with artists at a certain level, you can't just upload a song saying Kool Keith is on it. Like Kool Keith has to approve it on his end.
Oh.
Something I had known. So like at that point, I was like, oh crap. So then I was like, I wonder if I can even get a hold of him. Who knows what it's like to get a hold of Kool Keith, especially when I want a favor instead of giving him money. But I hit him up, got a response in like no time, and it went right through. And he added me as a friend on Instagram, so we could like do promotion and stuff. So then like I get to the show. And originally they were like, okay, well, everybody get there for sound check around 6, and we'll all have dinner with Keith, and we'll all like, get to know each other and stuff. I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing, dinner with Kool Keith. He didn't show up until way after I'd already performed. I don't know what it was that kept him. I think it was the first night of that leg of the tour, so they were still kind of like, everybody wasn't all traveling together. They were all kind of meeting at that show, and from what I gather, like, it's a little easier when everybody's kind of guiding, the ship in one direction. But like, so I didn't get the chance to meet him and have dinner with him then, but we were just chilling with my girlfriend, another female friend of mine by the front. And I think one of the bouncers was flirting with my girlfriend, and my other female friend was like, you want to meet Keith? And they're like, yeah, well, my boyfriend has a song with him. Can you? And we all went back there and we met him. And so when I go back there, he's just kind of standing in front of this backpack that he's like zipping, and it's like he's trying to close this pink backpack for a good solid 10 minutes. I don't know exactly what was going on, but like I'm like, he's got this pink furry hat on, and he's closing this. It was like he was trying to jam everything in there, and he had no idea who I was. And I was warned ahead of time by another kind of well-known rapper. There's like, he's a good chance you have no idea who you are. And I'm like, yeah, that's all good. But like in the back of my head, I'm like, I've been emailing with this guy. Like, so he at least has he had no idea about the song that we had done. Not like this. So I'm assuming this whole time I was emailing with like his assistant or somebody. Which I found it was a very interesting lesson that. But he was very nice to me. He took a picture. He signed my Dr. Octagon album. And one of this other dude there who was touring with him after was like, "Don't feel bad. He didn't remember you. He doesn't remember you." He's like, "That's just the way he is." And I'm like, "Dude, I was warned. That was exactly what I was told would probably happen, and it was." I got my full Kool Keith experience. I'll probably never talk to the guy again, and he probably has no memory of it. But I posted a picture of it online, and I think he liked it. So.
And to switch the topic a bit, this fall you and Young Humo were supposed to drop the Sunny Days and Hairy Nights project, but it did not release. Why is that so?
Nope. So that's Young Hump of Digital Underground. The reason that never came out, it hasn't come out yet, is just because we have recorded more and more songs. Like every time we get to a point where we're like, all right, well, let's kind of break this down and finish it. Like we just made more songs. Like I started working with a new producer, and I'm like, oh, this is even more perfect. So like there are a bunch of songs that were originally like actually the title. I don't even know if the title's going to stay the same. Because I think the title track "Sunny Days and Hairy Nights" I produced, and I don't even know if I'm going to put that on the album anymore. So. And to be honest, like he's somebody who I met through the internet. I was a huge Digital Underground fan, and I was in talks of working with Shock G, Humpty Hump, before he passed away. Probably wouldn't happen, but like, so to be able to work with Young Hump now, who took over that legacy, is huge. And he is just, the more we've gotten to know each other, the more invested we both have become in this project. In the beginning, it was an EP where I was like, okay, like, maybe I can just snake an EP out of this because this guy is so talented. I'm not going to get that much of his time. But the relationship grew, and the album has become something bigger. So, I mean, that's really it. It'll come sometime next year. But to be honest, if he has kind of shown me that he's a lot more interested in making this album, like, I've gotten to know him better, and his enthusiasm over it's grown. So when it was just me that was super enthusiastic about it was one thing, but now I know that he is as well. That just makes me want to spend more time on it. So.
And how does a Soma song come about? How do you make a song?
Yeah. Well, so it's funny. I used to just start by writing and just saying, all right, whatever comes is going to come. It's like whatever it is unfiltered Soma79. But like I realized that in my the second phase of my career that I've been in since I kind of picked it up again, starting in the pandemic era. I need to start with an idea. I have to start with a concept or a hook. And I need to almost, like they say in the movie industry, you have to have an elevator pitch. You need to have like, a 30-second pitch to an executive that is going to get them on the hook. I need to have that for myself. Like I have to come up with a hook that's, I don't mean like a chorus hook, but just like a reason for the song to exist. Like on You're Scaring the Ducks, I have a song called Pregret. And pregret is a word that I made up years ago and I think other people have probably made it up as well because someone else beat me to the Urban Dictionary with it. But it's basically when you do something you know you're going to regret. Like it's the feeling of regret, but you have it before you even do the thing. And it's like it's one of those words that when you say it over here, people immediately know what you're talking about, even though they've never heard the word before. So for me, it's like, okay, well, I thought it was creative. I kind of come up with this word, even though other people come up with it as well. Why not write a song about it? So I wrote a whole song about the feeling of regret. And so that for me is the purest form of my expression, is taking something that started for me as a joke or like a word exercise and then blowing it up to the level of a song to sort of make it accessible to other people. And as much as I don't have a lot of good things to say about Kanye West these days, I do remember that he had an interview years ago where he talked about how being a rapper is sort of like being a politician. And I don't have a lot of great things to say about politicians either. But he does make a point in that you need to distill down your message in a way that a lot of people can kind of understand it. And it's sort of like understanding what is appropriate for the medium, in that if you're going to be a rapper and you have the ability to use all this colorful language, you have to use it in a way, it's like you'd be smart to use it in a way that appeals, that a lot of people can get. So for me, like taking this word that I found that people got as soon as I said it in context and have the perfect idea for a song. So a lot of it is like that. And sometimes too, like I was listening to a podcast one day and someone said the line, "I was caught trafficking in the gossip of the moment." And I just liked that line. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm starting a song with that line. Wherever it goes, it goes. So sometimes it's that way,
And you constantly put out music videos. What is the process of making one?
So that was another thing where it was my OCD at work. I've been talking about making this movie for years called Drinking Songs for Children. I've actually been working on this album. The album's been done for a few years, but the album's 25 years in the making. It features songs from me when I was a lot younger and songs with me now, sometimes on the same song. I decided that the idea of the project is that it evolves over age and there'll be a film that goes with it. And I was going to make a music video for every song on the album, plus stuff in between that in the videos cut together into maybe a 80, 90-minute film. This year, I released 6 of those videos, and that means there's 12 songs in the album. I have 6 more. 2 of them are basically done. I want to go back and tweak them a little based on some of the stuff I've learned, and the rest are coming. But what I really needed to do was make a lot of videos just so I could figure out all the hacks, like all the easy way around it. And it's like, as recently as a couple hours ago, I ordered this thing called a Tour Box, which is this controller that's kind of makes it easier to use Premiere Pro with than using a mouse and a keyboard. So I'm always still looking for these ways to do it faster. And it used to be a music video took me months to do, and now I can do one in a weekend, like including most of the editing. And that's not using AI or anything. It's just me getting better with my skills. So I had to make. I want some of the ideas that I have for the Drinking Songs for Children one, especially a video that I'm going to start working on the next few weeks, I couldn't have done back then, and I couldn't have done without making a bunch of other videos to learn more and more. So a lot of that was just about learning enough about the medium so that I can do the more advanced things that I want to do. And I went to film school back years ago, but I graduated the last year that we used real film instead of digital stuff. So I had to kind of teach myself all of the digital stuff. That had a lot of just catching up to do, essentially.
And how do you feel about, because you just mentioned it, how do you feel about AI, especially with you being a digital artist? What is your opinion on it in art?
My biggest concerns about AI are actually the environmental concerns, the concerns of just how much pollution it's pushing out, all that stuff. What I've been saying about AI in general, if you take that out, and mind to that point, I think this would be the time to start working on more renewable sources of energy like solar. Like this is where the money, the need hits the business, and if that's if that's what happens to that, that's fantastic. If we can run these data farms on solar and that all works out well, I love it. But in terms of the art aspect of it, what I've been saying about AI since I started researching it, and I do a bunch of AI in my professional work as well, is that AI will make smart people smarter and dumb people dumber. And I think I use AI in my art only really for modeling, meaning that I'll use it to try to get a picture I have in my head, and then I'll kind of I'll never end up using the AI, but I'll use it to kind of work an idea out, and then I'll take it from there. But I don't use AI in you won't find any AI in my actual art. It's more of something I do that to have a conversation with myself before I start. And that's what I find the best way to do it is. In terms of all these people screaming about AI art and stuff like that, I mean, most of it sucks, and I think it's going to keep sucking. And I think it's just going to be a niche of its own. I don't fear that it's going to take everything over. What I'm seeing is more and more humans reject it, and that's sort of what the way all these things kind of work is that they're kind of a hot topic for a while, and then the general public decides if it's going to accept it or reject it. And I'm seeing a lot more reject it these days from AI. I'm seeing the companies that are using it hiding the fact that they're using it, and then when people find out, they're mad about it. So I don't think this is the case where any press is good press. I think a lot of companies know that it's bad press right now to be having this relationship with AI, and I think that's going to be a major stumbling block in terms of it really moving forward. Now, there's also the part that I use ChatGPT on a regular basis, and it sucks more today than it does yesterday. It makes more and more mistakes the more and more I use it. So I think if you're a smart AI user and you can understand what it's good for and what it's not, what's an ethical use of it and what it isn't, that's useful. I mean, but to me, it's really just a web search that you can ask a question to like a human would ask. And to me, there's a lot of value in that. In terms of it creating actual art, look, if it wants to give me a list of 100 words that all rhyme on a similar sound that I can go through and kind of build a rhyme out of, that's what I do anyway myself, writing it down in the notebook. So to use it for me to be something like that, to me is that's about as far as I go in terms of wanting to use AI in my art. Is kind of like getting some of my busy work done, so I can start the creating process. I think it's gonna just kind of flush itself out, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And you are a big Marvel Comics fan. What can you tell me about your love for it?
So it's funny, I'm one of those people who the past few years, I finally saw the Fantastic Four movie a few weeks ago. I've fallen off a little bit the past few years, but the thing about Marvel is they always get you back, and it's only a matter of time before I see the right thing, and I'm super excited about it. What I love about Marvel in particular, and even this versus DC, is that they're everyday people that are also heroes. Like Ant-Man also has a problem with his mortgage. It's Chris Rock used to joke, the Hulk's got gout. It's like these, I always appreciated that these were everyday people that just had, it always presented the idea that your superpowers are both, what makes you great, but also what holds you back. And as someone with myself who struggled with OCD since I was a child, ADHD since I was a child, and other things that are less helpful, I had to learn that there are superpowers in those things, but there's also other ways that they're going to hold you back. One of the things that I remember from my childhood was that in some ways, and even my early adulthood, in some ways I was a lot more mature than my peers, and in other ways I was a lot less mature than my peers. And it probably averaged out to about right. But when I had those big differences, it kind of was like having the superpower and knowing how to use it for good, but not understanding how it hurt you in other ways. Like the ADHD and OCD that allowed me to succeed at certain things were costing me things in my social life and stuff like that. And that's something that you see a lot in Marvel Comics, as you see, the before mentioned Ant-Man struggling to find a way to be an ex-con who gets to see his daughter Cassie. That to me is something that I really relate to that. I'm somebody like, and I know this isn't Marvel, this is DC, but the Flash is one of my favorite characters, and I love that concept that essentially he can run fast enough to save everybody but himself. And to me, I love that idea. And that to me is like, I understand how you can write hundreds and hundreds of comics on that idea. So.
You and Pilsy Beats have collaborated together many times. How is it working with him? Why do you choose to work with him so much?
Well, he was actually, I mentioned before about how I found out that I was in Project Mayhem because somebody added me to the MySpace page. I'm pretty sure that was him because he was also a member of Project Mayhem. And then when we split up, he was also a member of Mike Monarchy. And then oddly enough, when Mike Monarchy kind of met his demise, I didn't go into all this before, but he was in a relation, he was dating this woman for years, and they brought a lot of our crowds. They were like, we had a mosh pit at this Onyx show that I still can't believe we didn't get on footage. We did tape it, but somebody taped over it, whatever. But but then after they broke up, like nobody was showing up anymore, and we were like, oh, so she was really a pivotal part of this band. And so we just kind of like a lot of the enthusiasm ran out after that because unfortunately his breakup at the time made the band a little easier, but did not make the shows any easier. And then at that time in general, we were just it was really, really hard to make it anywhere in independent hip hop. People weren't even buying CDs anymore. It was the days of LimeWire and stuff like that, and pre-Spotify, so it was expensive to put out a CD that nobody was going to buy, and it wasn't easy enough to distribute it online, and like you couldn't, whatever. So for years, I hadn't talked to Pilsy for close to 10 years. Actually, me and the other guy from Mike Monarchy and Narconics did more and more work together. Like, he helped me with some of the early videos and stuff I did. And then, Pilsy was a rapper back in the day. And then, I don't remember what it was, but like, I hit a certain point in my life where I sort of like, there are people in my life who I didn't have falling out with, but just didn't talk to anymore. But they had meant a lot to me at a certain point. So this might have been during COVID or whatever, and when I had the time, I just started trying to like mend those relationships and just try to be like, what's going on here, and like is because sometimes people don't reach out because their lives aren't going well, and maybe they could use some help. And that wasn't really the case with him, but like we ended up just talking more, and he's like, I don't even rap anymore, I just make beats. And at that point, that's exactly what I needed because I didn't want to rely on other rappers. He gave me a ton of beats, and we just got to the races, and it started working out really well. And he's progressed a lot over the past few years. Like, his beats now are even so much better than are a few years ago. So with him, it's a matter of someone I've known for 20-something years, and we understand how to work well together and appreciate each other in that regard. But I work with a lot of other people too, because I work at such a fast pace. I don't want to wait for anybody. So like, I have albums with 3 or 4 other producers going on right now, just because I don't like, if it was just me and Pilsy, I know I'd be getting frustrated that things aren't moving fast enough. So like it's easy for me to not stay frustrated because I'm doing 6 other things at the same time,
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you about the Drinking Songs for Children album that you mentioned before. I know it's supposed to be like a concept album. What can you tell me about the concept of it?
So the concept is really that I came up with that title well over 20 years ago. And every time I said it to somebody, they laughed and they said, when that comes out, not every time, but they were like, when that comes out, I want to hear that. And I just realized the title sort of had legs of its own. And then it became working backwards from that. So I had different versions of that album, quote unquote, done years ago when I did broadcasting for Channel 79. I was supposed to on broadcasting for Channel 79, I announced Drinking Songs for Children is coming in 2010. Here we are in 2015, and I'm the only person with a final copy of it, and the producer, I guess. But like, so a lot of it was just, when I came back to rapping, that was to me one of the things that I was like, okay, now I have esoteric for the album, because that was the thing too, is like, okay, I wanted this album to be special. I needed to get bigger rappers on it, but I didn't have the clout. I didn't have the money back in the day, and we passed up an opportunity to do a song with IDF, My Ideas and Abilities, and I'm still losing my mind about that. But we didn't have the money back in the day, but now I had the money, but I didn't have the clout, and I was off practice. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a side A, side B, like different chapters of the same book, where I'm going to resurrect this old album because it has some of my best work on it, but I'm going to finish it now, and it's going to be like something that crosses time. And so I had this idea. My first creative thing I wanted to do was be an author, and I had this idea for a book about child abuse, and I wrote like 100,000 words on this. And the concept was, this is when I was like in my late teens, early 20s, I was going to write this. It was going to be about a kid who was abused as a child, and the chapters were going to go back and forth between when he was a child and when he was an adult. But in basically but as the book went on, it was going to be harder and harder to know which was which, because he was, as a child, brought into an adult world, but as an adult, he was stunted into the child world. So that never worked out because I wasn't a good enough writer back then, and might not even be a good enough writer now. But that was the idea that I sort of reformatted for Drinking Songs for Children, is that it would be, I was a partier when I was younger. I was a rave kid, and there's a rave song on the album. I was, Copyright was one of my favorite MCs back in the day. He talked about doing all these crazy drugs. I got him on the album on a song about acid. But then there's also songs about me realizing that I might have a drinking problem that I recorded in like 2010 called Refrigerator Hum. And so, but then I didn't really totally quit drinking until 3.5 years ago. So it's sort of about how the concept of Drinking Songs for Children is about how these things that happen to you in childhood, they follow you for the rest of your life in some way, shape, or form, especially when they're things from the adult world that got introduced to you as a child. And for me, the biggest thing for me was rap music, because I lived a very secluded, lifestyle. But I wouldn't have even known about weed. I wouldn't have known about any of this stuff if it wasn't for rap music. We didn't have social media. I had Spin Magazine, and I had, the friggin' License to Drive soundtrack with the Corey Haim brothers on it. It's like, with Corey Haim and Corey Feldman on it. It's like we didn't. So like, I guess that's pretty much all I can say about that. But Drinking Songs for Children, like, I was able to get some of my favorite MCs of all time on it, some of my best friends of all time on it, my favorite verses of all time I've ever done. I got Razcast on it. Elza, who is my favorite rapper of all time, he's on that. He's also on the You're Scaring the Ducks track. And it was just a dream come true for me. And it was also, the other inspiration behind it, I know I'm rambling, is there was this book called Garfield 9 Lives. And it was this book that came when I was a kid, and it was 9 different Garfield stories told through different tones with different art, different style of art. And I have this character I've been creating, Oxy Astronaut, and he appears on, like, he's right here on the cover, this little astronaut guy with Ox, that's him, and he appears in some way, shape, or form on all my covers, like this one. And I wanted to show a different version of that character in each video, and that was sort of symbolically my childhood that I was still tethered to. And in one of the videos that hasn't come out yet, for the title song with Razcast and Elza and Young Dirty Bastard from Wu-Tang Clan is on that too, it's a cartoon that I made. Like, I literally drew a hand-drawn cartoon of Ox that's going to be released on that. So it's more about me just trying to distill all these years of my art into one project. And even in those 10 years that I wasn't rapping, I was learning how to do visual art, and that a lot of that art's appearing in the movie. So it's kind of just like my life project. And when it's done, I don't know what I'm going to do. Drinking Songs for Children 2. I'm already announcing it. 2022.
And you've been making music for such a long time. Would you say you had a moment that you realized you were doing something right? Like, did you have a moment that you realized, okay, hip hop is really for me? Like the first time. I'm not talking about after the long break. Like,
honestly, it didn't happen until after the long break, because I was always trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And I wasn't fully comfortable with myself as a person, and I wasn't my rhymes weren't a reflection of who I am. I hadn't lived an interesting enough life yet. I was still living life through other people's lenses back then. And so I was kind of doing an impression of a rapper. Like I was like, well, I knew I was a good writer, and that like, because I had done well with poetry and with prose and stuff when I was younger. So I always thought that I could write my way into being a good rapper. But one thing I've learned is most rappers are either better rappers or better writers. But you can't be really good at one and really bad at the other. You have to be at least decent at both. And I was a talented writer that didn't understand the way music worked. And that changed when I came back the second time. It's like all those years of just understanding even what a 4/4 beat is and all these different things, and understanding, oh, like you're supposed to hit the vowel sound on the kick and things like that. And like, I just had to learn a lot more about music. And it was really like during the making of Drinking Songs for Children that I was like, oh, I never could have made this album before. And you realize how it's really just about working a muscle. Like I've written hundreds of songs the past few years, and not all of them are great. And I don't think I understood how much of just hard work goes into this and how much of a craft it really is. But once I did, and I realized I loved the craft, it was all over, and now I just want to do every bit of it. So it was really about, like, I was a failed rapper before. I was able to manufacture a few songs that were really good, that I was very, very proud of, and proud enough that I'm still releasing them and Drink Songs for Children to this day. But for me, that was almost like a magician doing an illusion. I was somehow able to construct this thing that wasn't truly reflective of who I was. I was a shitty, I don't know if I was a bad artist back then, but like I was able to make it look like I was a good artist for short periods of bursts. Now I wanted to just be that good artist. And, that was, I might never be a huge rapper, but I know that I can go toe to toe with some big names on songs and have people not be like, yo, we got crushed. And I've even had some people tell me that I, beat some of those rappers in those songs, and I'll take it,
Yeah. And I think it's been an amazing interview. So I just want to leave you to plug anything you want to plug. Where can people find you? What are you working on? You can say anything you want.
I would say just find Soma79 everywhere. I'm not on Twitter. Some dude in Australia has been sitting on the Soma79 account on Twitter, so that one ain't me. But I would say just soma79.bandcamp.com if you want to check out my music, or if you want a CD and want me to mail one to you, I'll probably send you one for free. Just hit me up on Instagram. I'm always looking to, what I'm really interested in doing is I'm looking to I do this thing where everywhere I go in the US, I get a tattoo of another leaf on my arm. And I do this because it pushes me to go, because I want my life on my body, like my heart on my sleeve. And like, I love doing interviews like this because I get to meet and talk to people from all over the world. So it's like, if you're another creator out there who wants to collab, do you do music too, or is this your main thing?
This is my main thing for now. I'm not planning to do music, but who knows?
Right. Well, if there's anything I can ever help you with, man, I'm always happy to. Like, one thing I will mention is, in order to keep myself sane with all this stuff and like my OCD, is I dedicate 1/3 of my time making art to doing art for other people at no cost. And that sometimes is the form of a music video, it's sometimes a flyer, it's sometimes helping somebody who's made most of their album cover but don't know Photoshop well enough to kind of get it in the guidelines and stuff. So that to me is what kind of fuels my soul. And I felt a lot of guilt over the years. I have a pretty good life. I'm not going to lie about it. I have a good life, and I worked very hard, but I also, my parents, helped me out a lot when I was a kid. And I really, I feel guilty sometimes I find it self-absorbed, the amount of time that I spent working on my art. And I realized that the way to sort of adjust that for me is that I dedicate a decent amount of my time to helping others with their art, because it allows me to appreciate the fact that I do have a gift that I've nurtured. That gift has value to somebody else, and that value is helping them along. So it's sort of a way that satisfies my soul and also helps me put more good into the world, and also form relationships, because I've formed more relationships with that where we're all struggling, and a lot of hip hop is pretending you're doing better than you are, and then having to admit privately that I'm struggling and I can't do this. It's sort of like if me going out there saying at first I know this is the reality and I'm here to help, we both come to the situation more humble, and we can get a better relationship. And I've had so many great relationships grow that way, and that's really what at this point in my life that I'm trying to do, is have more relationships and see where they grow and just collaborate with more people.